Hello, Internet.
Welcome to Costco. I love you.
We have Zotac 30 something, 3080 Ti that came in for repair, and guess why? Something burned. So, not surprised. Something always gets burned with these Zotac cards, and the reason for that is absence of fuses on the 12 volt PCI Express connector. Now, you're probably thinking, well, Tony, didn't you say Zotac 5090 is the greatest 5090 that the money can buy in your recent videos? I did. Problem is, you didn't listen. What I said was Zotac 5090. I never said Zotac 3080 Ti. I never said Zotac 2080. I never said Zotac 3090. I never said Zotac 4090. I said Zotac 5090. And that makes a big difference. So when I say, hey, this is a good GPU, that means this is a good GPU. What's the best 4090 that the money can buy? MSI Supreme, not Liquid X. I mean, it's essentially the same thing, but I think Supreme is probably, in my opinion, Supreme is just better. But Liquid X, it's a problem to deal with. And I've seen more than once when the whole hybrid setup just stops working, it leaks out or whatever. So I would not recommend MSI Liquid X. But the Supreme with a vapor chamber and, every single power stage populate for the core and, memory and whatnot. The best 4090 that the money can buy. And it has fuses. So what more do you want? The thing is, 4090 from MSI, Supreme in particular, I think that even Ventus is also included. They use very reliable, expensive and fancy and very smart power monitoring, not the power monitoring, but the power controllers. The PWM controllers, buck converters, whatever you want to call those, and good driver MOSFETs. So it's just a combination of too many good things at once on one single board. And the only board that did it for 4090 was MSI. No one else. What about the MSI 3090? I think Supreme is also good. Not so sure about any other different models. From off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything. But I do have a Supreme sitting on a shelf that I just recently finished. Very good board. And so let's continue on removing all this glorious thermal pad. I think this pad is like has some kind of a carbonated or something. I don't know exactly why it's all black. Maybe it's to commemorate the BLM month or something. Who knows? Who cares? But it's pretty good actually, except that it doesn't last for too long for whatever reason. I don't know. I have not seen this type of pad perform well, except maybe once when the cart that I got that had these pads was barely used. So, which served as an indicator that the pads were brand new, more or less. See, the reason why I don't like these pads is because they just like to break away. You peel them off and they just kind of, they break off, they separate, and very difficult to reuse them basically. But regardless, all right, let's move this out of the way. And I am back to my old multimeter. And I am not using this one. I probably might use it, but the thing is, none of the multimeters that I've tried so far are able to detect a circuit that is closing, especially when you're measuring like an output of an AND gate or or any of the inputs or whatnot. And then there's one pesky transistor would pull one of its U gates legs low when you powered the board because there's some kind of a circuit error or whatever. Something wrong with the logic, right? So the output gets pulled low. The only multimeter that's able to see it is this guy. None of the other multimeters that I tried, they would able to see it. So let's say if I were measuring the exact same pin and it wasn't getting pulled low, the other multimeter would tell me, hey, it's short circuited. Now I understand people that are engineers and they know how multimeters work and whatnot, they'll probably argue you can't really measure the resistance while something is energized. That kind of screws up the multimeter. And I can't agree or disagree with that because obviously I don't know enough. But all I know is what I saw with however many multimeters I've had. This is the only multimeter that is able to detect a circuit that is energized, but it's being pulled low by something. It's not a it's not a dead short. You may be reading 300 ohms, 90 ohms, or a complete zero. This multimeter will see it just in a beeper mode, whereas the other multimeters will not be able to see it. And instead, what they will see, if you start measuring in a beeper mode the circuit that you're, of the interest, it'll show you that it's shorting out, when in fact it does not. So this is why I had so much success with this thing, because this thing will tell me if something is shorted or not. Regardless, let's see if we have any shorts. So nothing on 1.8. This is memory here. Memory is good. Hex is okay. 12 volt. 12 volt is okay. 3.3. What do we have here on 12? This one's okay. What about here? This one's also okay. Nothing on 5. So what's smoked? I have no idea. I don't see any shorts on, according to the multimeter. So maybe something else smoked and card ended up here completely by mistake. I have no idea. Who cares? Let's go ahead and power this thing on, see what it does. So what I'm saying basically is this is the magic multimeter that's behind all of my repairs. So, and it's dirt cheap compared to anything else on the market today. With all these Sneersy, Fneersy, Fiercy. Oh,
Hello. Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
I know what burned. Let's have a look under mics. What burned was his cable. Probably, and both of them. Oh my goodness, look at that.
That's not normal.
Who cares? Which means, what does that mean? It means that we're most likely not having any kind of short. Yeah, there's no short on this pin, obviously. No short on this pin either. So I think what happened was his cables weren't properly plugged in, and they started melting, and they started smoking, and that the GPU may actually be work just fine. And we're doing 1.78 of an amp. Let's see if we have PAX or something. See, there you go.
We got packs.
There's memory. Do we have core, memory, massive VDD, and the core, and the 1.8. All right, so my guess is that once I plug this thing in into the computer, power it on, it will post. So let's see. Put up a stand in here, and we'll just end up having to replace these connectors. Hopefully I can find the ones that I need. All right, so here goes nothing here, and that goes here, and here we go. One happy beep, and it's posted. There, problem solved. All right, we fixed it. Yes. So my job today is as simple as replacing both of these connectors. So we're gonna make it easier on ourselves and break away. Well, first let's somehow situate this level to some degree. I want to break away those little tiny hooks that are over here so that the connector will fall through easier. I only had to replace these connectors once in my life, probably, and but I'm pretty sure I remember how to do it correctly. So that's gonna go in here, and I remember that I was struggling with these little hooks that would not let go of the connector. So we can probably just kind of squeeze them together. Yep, and they just break, sort of. So all I did was I squeezed them together, and because of the plastic being rigid as it is, these connectors, these hooks, they just kind of break away, you see? Yeah, zero flexibility in these. Not sure exactly why they designed this plastic to be this way. Probably because it's a high temperature rated. So, but regardless, let's go and remove this connector. We're going to be using Black Horse Repair Flux to assist us with this type of work. So, and we're probably going to bring in some low melt. That is not necessary, and the low melt is kind of expensive. That's why I don't really like it, but we're going to be using it today anyway. So let's go ahead and do that right there so you can see it a little better. And I'm going to put some here and here. The most difficult pins to work on would be the ground. These are the ones that have the biggest mass. So, but if we take our time, we should be okay. Don't need to rush any of this. Alright, so these holes are relatively large, Kind of makes me wonder if we can wick them out without the use of sucker. So usually large holes like these are easier to wick away with just a braid, but there's a lot of solder in them, as you can see. Yeah, I mean it works. It works, but it is a little slow, so it's okay. Let's take it slow. And we're already starting to fail because low melt did not mix all the way through. So we'll either have to apply more heat or we'll have to go to the other side of the board. We'll see. Yeah, we'll probably have to go to the other side of the board and maybe we'll heat it up just to help it out a little bit. Okay, that one doesn't seem to work very well. Let's go back into here, a little bit more flux, and we're going to bring in a little bit more low melt into these holes and kind of mix it in with a smaller tip. That actually helps a lot to really get that low melt into that hole, is to use a small tip like this that is able to go into these holes and get it mixed in really well. Alright, let's see if we can wipe this out. It's a little bit messy in here. Not the way I like to do this, but it is what it is. And I think my suction is ready to go. So I can just suck it out. Unless the sucker is clogged up, as usual. I don't like this particular one. It gets clogged in a lot. So I always have to sort of unclog it. I don't know if there's a better model out there. Let me know, because I almost always have to use this to get it unclogged. There's something in there, and I just burnt myself trying to push it in. Yeah. Alright, seems to be working. Let's go ahead and finish this off. Yeah, I don't like this gun. I mean, it works fine, but the glass is starting to crack already. And it's constantly getting clogged up, and the filter inside is also getting clogged up quite often. So probably replace a couple of connectors and you have to clean out the whole system. So very annoying to say the least. There's got to be a better way, but this is what I have for now. So if you guys have anything better than this, let me know. Something that's handheld like this would be nice. Perfect. Alright, let's wipe this out, see what we're dealing here with. Should have done that from the very beginning. That looks a lot better. It looks nice and clean. Holes are very clear, almost there. Just a little bit on this end, a little bit of overflow of solder that could potentially get in the way. So let's go and wipe this out. Alright, that looks good. Now, to be completely transparent regarding Black Horse Flux, it doesn't necessarily make this job better, for the lack of a better word, but it makes it cleaner. It doesn't make it easier, though. The one thing that Black Horse Flux doesn't do is making it easier, but it makes it cleaner for sure. That's why I use it almost all the time. So, because I like clean repairs. So you could call me obsessed with cleaning. After all, I went to college to learn certain types of cleaning, and then I worked at the hospital for 12 years doing a certain type of cleaning, and that's why my whole cleaning obsession kind of follows me everywhere. Now, it would be great if all I had to do was to find a couple of connectors. Problem is, not all these connectors are the same. Some are straight, most of them are angled, but some of them are flipped 180 degrees. So it could have a notch facing completely opposite direction. So I'm gonna go dig around and see what I can find. For instance, we have these two connectors that look kind of the same, though this one's got a notch on this end, this one's got the notch on the other end. The other thing to keep in mind is that look how far away these little retaining things, hole through pins, whatever, stick out. So it's going to be very different. If I plug it into here, it won't even fit because these holes don't line up. So I have to find something that's exactly like this. And probably the best place to find that would be none other than just another Zotac board. So let's see if we can, yeah, so that fits right in, at least on the surface. And so I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can find one more connector that looks exactly like this, and hopefully probably gonna be another Zotac cord, most likely, because every other cord that I have, they appear to be all oriented in a completely different direction. Yeah, like this HP here I got. Look, it seems to be oriented in a correct way, but it's completely flipped. So, yeah, you think finding these is easy? Yeah, find these. Interestingly enough, what I noticed with Zotac and Asus, they share a lot of the design, such as their choice of connectors, and like they use these types of connectors for like LEDs and whatnot. Zotac's doing the exact same thing. I don't know. There's something about Zotac and Asus, almost as if they're made at the same factory. I don't know. I'm gonna try some nano, Chinese nano here. See how that works. I wasn't too impressed with it, but whatever. I got a tube. I gotta do something with it. So, and we are going to add a little bit of low melt. There we go. And one more here. Something like that. Let's see how that works. Okay, there goes one and the other. All right. Okay, so let's see, where are they? I think this is one. Hopefully it fits. Looks like we need to clean up some of them connectors, some of them pins here from excessive solder. Hopefully that's good enough. There we go. All right, so that fits. Pins look correct. Okay, let's see if we can finish this off with nano flux. I'll zoom in here so you can see how it behaves. It is absolutely clear. I do not recall it having any kind of noticeable smell. It did have a smell, but it was very, very low. So, and I've already done a detailed review on this anyway, so I'm not gonna bother. All right, the connectors had been replaced. I'm not going to bother replacing the pads. I want to see if these pads are actually good. So one way to tell is to run a test. And what I'm looking for, in case you didn't know, and if you want to know whether or not your thermal pads for the memory need to be replaced or not, is you simply look at the hotspot of the core. And if the temperatures of the memory exceeds the hotspot, and the hotspot has to be no more than, for the NVIDIAs on average, it's 10 to 15 degrees, which means your paste is probably good. So let's say your core is at 70, your hotspot is at 85, so that's 15 degrees plus. Then your memory should be somewhere around the area of the hotspot, which is about 85 or below. The lower the better. So let me see if I can. There we go. So if the memory is 5 degrees above the hotspot, or even 10 degrees, which is even worse. So that is definitely time for you to replace your memory pads. But of course, if you have an AMD, those numbers are absolutely meaningless because AMD cannot make cores, even in 2026, that are anywhere near within the reasonable specs of thermal conductivity across its own die, where you could see anywhere from starting with 15 and going as high as 25 degrees delta on a 7900 XTX boards. 6900, forget all about it. That thing don't even exist to me anymore. So, but we'll see. Hopefully we won't even have to do any kind of thermal pads replacement, especially considering the fact that this card has pads on both sides, even though the chips are only on one end, and this reasonably sized backplate only contributes to the cooling effect. So, but I really wish this card had fuses on board. It would be a good 3090 or 3080 or just 30 series Zotac. You know, I'm not even going to count 3060s, 3070s into the 30 series GPUs anyway. They seem to be a beast or a beast's abortion on its own, abortion of a beast on its own, that it doesn't even seem to fall into the same category other than it's named. So I'm going to let this one run for a few minutes, see how the temperatures are holding up, and we will assess whether or not we need to replace the pads. Alright, so what we're seeing here is we're not even 10 degrees delta on the core, which is good, but the memory temperatures are just at the 8 degrees, at the 5 degrees mark. So maybe Maybe we can shut this thing down and replace the pads. I think they've already lived their happy days, so let's go and do that. It's not a big deal. Take this thing apart one more time. I got nothing to do anyway, other than this, and I surely do enjoy it. So that back plate actually does a very good job. It is ridiculously hot to touch this back plate, which means it's actually doing its job. So that's kind of that's one way that you can tell whether or not your back plate is any good in terms of its functionality, whether it serves its purpose or not, is when you run the card for 5 minutes under firm work or whatnot. If the back plate is hot, then that's good. That means it's taking heat away from the board. Now, what size pads do we need? 2 millimeters. How do I know? Simple. The core, the area that cools the core, and the area that cools the memory, they are on the same plane. If they are on the same plane, that's an indicator for you that the pads are 2 millimeters. So that's probably the easiest way to tell. So we're going to take 2 millimeter pad, slip it in there, and that should fit perfectly. Either way, I'm going to run the tests. I'm hoping that everything's going to be okay, and thank you for your time, and have a blessed day, and goodbye.